Keith, what do you see as a key challenge for Landcare going forward? What have you challenged the South Australian Landcare Conference with?
Well, I think there's three big challenges. One is we've got to be far more effective. You know, the changes we face now mean we must be transformational. It's not about adjusting our land use system, it's transforming them. We've got to broaden our base and broaden our funding base in particular. Landcare is an effective movement. It can't be bound by a government program. It's been captured too much by that in the past and by that one funding stream. And in my own work, you know, we're drawing on philanthropic funds, we're drawing on local giving, we're drawing on business investment, and I think Landcare as a whole must do that to continue flourishing. And I think, you know, implicit in all of that is to use the buzzword, we've got to innovate. Now, we've got to keep managing the things that are already happening, but we've got to go beyond that, innovate new techniques, new ways of communicating, new ways of changing land use, the whole basket. New ways of finance, which is what I touched on earlier.
Funding has been such a key thing in recent years because we've seen an increasing degradation of the funding stream from government. It's been a bit old-fashioned, really, in many respects, the way that Landcare is funded and the hoops that Landcare groups need to jump through to gain that funding. So breaking that nexus is a key challenge going forward.
Absolutely. It's absurd. We've been filling in the stop-start short-term funding applications for more than 30 years. And sorry, that is not providing us a fraction of what we need, both in terms of the volume of money or the continuity of money and the certainty that we can do these long-term programs. You can't take out weeds on a 1 or 2 year basis. Taking out weeds and keeping them out is a 10, 20-year effort. I think for government there's challenges in working out how to fund a movement and how to support a movement.
And that waxes and wanes the political, credibility or lack thereof.
Absolutely, it does, and the political understanding of what we are. You know, one government can bring in a whole heap of whole landscape stuff, and now we're back at threatened species and adding value to particular agricultural products as key focuses. And there'll be an election in the next year or two, possibly sooner, and we'll be chopping and changing again. And that's why we need to diversify the funding. We need to be able to decide our own future and bring that funding stream in behind what we need.
So how do you break away from those political shackles, those political fashions, and broaden that funding base? Because it sounds to me like you're talking about way more than just government.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, lots of different ways, and I can only talk to my own experience. What we've done with my broader program in Western Australia is we've set a big vision. We've set clear targets that this is what we really need to achieve to transform land use in these landscapes. And, you know, we've not done that nationally, not for a very long time. But we set a big vision, it's an appealing vision, and then we asked, you know, as one of my colleagues from the US who's worked in philanthropy all her life said, I think the reason you Australians don't get a lot of this money is because you don't ask for it. And I think, you know, in the last 15 years we've seen a significant increase in environmental philanthropy in Australia, and the demand has also risen, of course. And I think groups need to move into that world as well. And one thing we've been pushing is local giving. You know, we have lots of people, lots of farmers, lots of community members who give to their local hospital, who will give to their local school, and we've got to encourage them to give locally to their local Landcare group, to their local tree planting effort, to their local whatever it is that's needed in those areas that they're part of. That's very much part of it, but I think we're also seeing a really exciting time start where businesses are, one could almost say, behaving more responsibly than governments and wanting to make sure that their corporate farms, their supply chains and so on are done sustainably and done even in a way that helps regenerate these landscapes. And my strong prediction is in the next 10 years we're going to see some multi-$100 million investments from business into the landscape.
So you're thinking bigger, you're thinking in a broader sense about these funding challenges. But when you consider things like, the Wentworth Group of Concerned Scientists, who have quantified this a little bit and suggested that, Australia needs to be spending in the order of $5 or $6 billion at least a year to address some of the big environmental challenges in this country. Can you see a day when we're even going to get close to that?
That's what we're working towards, and I've got to see that day, otherwise it's not going to work. It's the country of Australia that supports the country of Australia, and the Wentworth Challenge, that $5 or $6 billion a year for a set period, I think they've said till 2050 we'd need to do that, 0.3% of the GDP. Now, how much do you spend maintaining a tractor? How much do you spend maintaining your car? We're not spending a fraction of that on maintaining the country.
That's a really good way to put it. Yeah, you've spoken about transformational.
I think I've got the numbers right. Yes, sorry.
You've spoken about transformational change a number of times. What do you mean about the challenge of transformational change for Landcare in this country, Keith?
Well, that will vary area by area. I think it does involve accepting that in some areas agricultural use or pastoral use isn't going to continue, or is going to continue in a totally different way.
Because climate's changing, etc.
Climate's changing, markets are getting harder. Sure, we've got to feed a lot of people, but a header now costs 1.2 million or thereabouts. You've got to grow a lot of grain to pay off your header. I think in the eastern wheat belt of WA, we're starting to see almost a transformation to pastoralism, where it once was cropping. A lot of properties there haven't sold for a very long time, so change is needed. And I think we either see change happen through slow and painful attrition, or we bite the bullet and actually make that change happen in a way that is positive and doesn't leave people in the lurch. We've also got to remember that society today understands sustainability and the need for sustainability. All due respect to them, but the early surveyors didn't. So we've cut the country up into these neat little squares, some of which are bloody good farms and some of which aren't. Now, what we've been doing in a part of southern WA, using totally private funds, is actually buying back a number of farms, marginal properties in a lot of cases, and reshuffling their uses. Some of it's staying in farming, some of it's being totally restored ecologically because it's in an absolutely pivotal spot for that work. Some of it's getting new crops. Our colleagues in Greening Australia have done a great job growing sandalwood, a much sought after crop, putting it in a biodiverse mix of stuff, and they're going to make a return on investment that's easily comparable to what you can on that land with farming.
And this really is transformational change, isn't it? Which, to a large degree, I presume, has to be driven by genuine innovation.
Absolutely. The old ways, we've milked them for as much as we can. It is very changeable stuff that we've got to move into, and I think people are up for it. We've 30 years of Landcare. It's been a long and proud history, but it's actually just practicing for what we need to do now.
And Keith, you are a genuine pioneer in the Landcare space. You've been there from the beginning. Having seen all the things that you have in 30 years, which I suppose in ecological terms, farming terms, is the blink of an eye in many respects.
Yes.
But having seen those changes in that time frame, how optimistic or otherwise do you feel about, the next 50, 100, 200 years?
Well, I think you've got to feel optimistic. A bit of realistic optimism is needed. There's just a bit too much.
But tempered by the challenges that we face.
You've got to keep your eyes wide open. That's optimism with your eyes wide open and your footwork improving. That's what we're aiming for.
Well, many, many challenges ahead. Really appreciate you telling us just a little about some of those at the current time. Keith, thank you for your time.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you.